What up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Jazzy Talk. Munich XP back on the mic here with my special guest for tonight. We got 4C Joe from the Chicago Third Strike scene. What up, Joe? Thanks for coming by and talking a little jazzy with me tonight.
My lovely home here in Chicago and all around the world. I'm 4C Joe. I am one of the several co-TOs of the Chicago scene at Logan Arcade. Mainly the events that we're going to be hosting up soon is our first ever ranking event for the Jazzy Circuit Season 5 coming up. It's going to be coming up this Sunday. And on top of that, I also help out at both the Chicago majors, Frosty Faustings and Combo Breaker, the former of which is next week. Can't believe the time has already gone that fast. And then, of course, I'm also helping organize and do other stuff for the auto qualifier that Logan Arcade is going to be hosting in April.
You mentioned Frosty and Combo Breaker, Joe, and I've been to Chicago quite a few times already, mostly for fighting games. And I can't ever think of a time when I went to Chicago and it wasn't cold as F. You know what I mean? Like every memory I have of Chicago is always like, man, it's really cold. I don't think I've ever been to Chicago where it's like I haven't talked about how cold it is.
That's just the Midwest for you. I mean, Chicago, especially around Frosty Weekend, it happens to be just the luck of the draw where Frosty Weekend is either freezing cold, blizzard conditions, polar vortex, or it's the freak couple days in the Midwest winter where it's 60 degrees and sunny out and melts all the snow. It's one or the other. There's no in between.
Yeah, I remember the last Frosty I went to, the revolving glass door at the front of the hotel froze. And so it couldn't
Yeah.
spin anymore.
I saw that too. That was some serious stuff. That was some serious cold. But
Yeah.
thankfully this recent cold spell is now over, and probably just going to be raining and like 45 for this weekend at Frosty, which I mean, we're going to be inside anyway, so what does it matter?
Yeah, so shout out to Frosty, longtime supporter of Jazzy. But before we get to all those events, let's talk a little bit about you, Joe. I've gotten an opportunity to know you a lot. I think we first met back in 2018 when I came to visit Logan for the first time, and not going to rehash that story here, but just wanted to talk to you more about just kind of your personal journey and how you got into fighting games.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of always been casually into fighting games ever since I was a little kid. I had a older brother, David. He's 3 years older than me, and we had to share everything, including video game consoles. And the first time, whoever got rights usually was who can win in a two-player game, and whoever won got rights for the week or whatever. And Street Fighter was the very first game that we bought where I beat him and I got rights for the first time. So it's kind of always just been in my sphere, but I didn't really get into the competitive scene until college. So 2014, 2015 in the Smash community starting out, believe it or not. I played Smash 4. To this day, I don't know why. But if I did not start playing that game, I wouldn't have eventually gotten into other fighting games, mainly Street Fighter 5, and then eventually got bored with that and then started playing Street Fighter 3. I didn't start playing Third Strike regularly until end of 2016, beginning of 2017, and that's when I started going to Logan Arcade regularly. That's when I met everybody. That's when I met Tough Gnarl. That's when I met Dirt Master. That's when I met Part 2, Soul Avenger, all the regulars there. And it's pretty much been every single Friday night since then. I've been showing up to play the game. They whipped me into shape. I
Mm-hmm.
eventually dropped my dusty Akuma and became a Makoto that could TOD anybody.
You're a Goki main. You're a Goki
Starting out
main.
I was.
Starting out,
so
okay.
so starting out I was, and then Dr. Pancake, who was living in Chicago at the time, he TOD'd somebody, and I just said, you know what, I don't want to work for
Mm,
my wins, I want to do that instead, and the
mm,
rest is history.
mm.
So if you want to blame anybody for anybody who has been TOD'd by me, if you want to blame anybody, blame Dr. Pancake, because he was the one that gave me the drugs in the first place.
Work smarter, not harder, I guess, is the
Yep.
mantra.
And
Yeah.
then started in 2017. I pretty much competed regularly up even through the pandemic online. Then took a 18-month hiatus after CEO last year. Returned at NEC this year, and now I'm kind of back on a part-time, whenever I can basis in terms of competing.
Oh, glad to have you part of the active scene this season, especially this season. 25 years of Dirt Strike, and so you were saying that you first got into like any type of competitive fighting games with Smash. And so can you, as from like my own research, it, you seem to have got into Third Strike around the mid, right, 2010s, right, 2016. So like can you explain to me the Smash to Third Strike pipeline? Because I know this is something that has been circulating as a topic of conversation for a while now. And, in New York, we have players like Bubbles and Keychain and Zork and Nox, the Jersey boys, and they all come from Smash. But, like, can you lend any insight on, whether this is like a real thing or is this just like, you know, just like a
So
conspiracy theory or
it
what?
is a real thing. So I
Okay.
am living proof that it is a real thing. And not only that, also one of our players, Astro, who goes by several names online. If you are a Fightcade monster, you may have run into him as 420 Hugh God, Swag Hugh God, or something like that.
Okay.
I butchered the hell out of that tag, but uh, I met him in my college's Smash program, and he jumped over to Third Strike. About I think 2-3 years once I was starting to really pick up steam in the game, and now he's developed into one of our scene's best Akuma players. I don't know, like it's just something about the game that draws people who have plateaued at a certain fighting game and they're just looking for a challenge. Which that's kind of why I jumped over to Third Strike is I eventually hit a wall playing Smash 4 and I've gotten to the like peak of my abilities, and I've been also doing behind the scenes work with Unrivaled Tournaments, which, shout outs to Jacob, Warren, Mike, all the guys at Unrivaled Tournaments. You guys are my brothers and I love you guys. Um so I was in a position where I wanted to still compete, but I wanted to challenge myself as well. But Smash just no longer offered that. So I just kind of looked at, okay, what is like considered a challenge in other people's eyes?
Huh.
And I looked at like the list of games that like are hailed as, the bastions of fighting games, where it's like if you are good at this game, you're automatically kind of considered a badass, right? And in my mental list, it was Marvel 2, which I couldn't play because my wrists are messed up. Third Strike or CVS 2. I knew nothing about CVS 2. I knew Third Strike because of Moment 37, so I just kind of naturally gravitated towards Third Strike. That's at least how the pipeline happened for me.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's Smash to pipeline story is different, but I can confirm that it's a shocking amount now that I think about it, because in between myself, Astro, Bubbles, Keychain, a bunch of other people, it's one of those games where once you kind of hit a certain point and you feel like playing something else, you just go to Third Strike for some reason.
Mm-hmm. So you said you started going to Logan Arcade. So like as a competitive Smash player, and then like how did you like learn about how did you even know that Third Strike players play at Logan, or how did you even know about Logan? Like how did you discover that the place and you know that community?
So I think it was like a Reddit post somewhere
Reddit.
that's like, I would imagine that it's deleted by now. I mean, it was so long ago. It was one time where I was in the DePaul University Game Lab trying to play Street Fighter V online, and I lost to some dumb Street Fighter V stuff. I can't even, even if you held me at gunpoint, I couldn't even recall exactly what it was. But I'm just like, you know what? I need a break from this game. I want to like just play another Street Fighter. And I was just like thinking about Third Strike because I have the online edition on my Xbox back in my dorm. And I was just kind of curious, just like, you know what? does this game still exist on arcade? I'm pretty sure there is. And I Google searched Third Strike arcade Chicago, and eventually it led me to a Reddit post. It's just like, oh yeah, Logan Arcade has like an actual Japanese arcade cabinet that has Third Strike
Mm.
on it. I'm like, well, I guess there's my answer. And then one Friday night in February, I rolled around for the first time and got my first couple games in, and the rest, as they say, is history.
So prior to going to Logan Arcade, were you someone who went to arcades in general as a kid, or no?
When I was a little kid,
Uh-huh.
yes. But when I was a teenager going on into my college years, no, not. I mean, I'm a very much a product of the console generation
Mhm.
of gamers. Like my idea of gaming when I was a kid, when I was going through high school and everything, was going home, sitting my ass on the couch, and booting up my Xbox 360 to play, Call of Duty, Halo 3, a little bit of Street Fighter 4. Although I was a masher in that game, I still don't know how to play that game to this day. And yeah, that was my idea of gaming. I went to arcades when I was a little kid. We had a couple of like kid centers, like a Chuck E. Cheese, or if you really want to get super specific Midwest childhood, Enchanted Castle in Lombard, which is also sort of by the Frosties venue as well. Um, yeah, anytime that I was in front of an arcade machine, it was either in those settings or at the laundromat wait with my mom waiting for laundry to get done. And it's like, oh, well, there's a little arcade cabinet. I'll go mess around on that until
Yeah.
until mom's laundry is done.
So yeah, you go into Logan Arcade for the first time. Like, how was the vibe? Like, did you just like play and then leave? Did you talk to anyone that first night? And if so, who did you talk to? Anybody you remember in particular that still is around today?
It took me a while to actually start talking to
Mhm.
people regularly because social situations. I'm still very much kind of a mess in when it comes to new people, especially back in my college days. Oh my god, I was a very very awkward kid. Um, but the overall vibe of that place, like even to this day, like I love seeing people's first reaction walking into Logan Arcade because I can tell you right now that little front area that you walk into has aside from the layout of the games has largely remained unchanged since the first time that I walked in. In fact, if anything, the only thing that they've added was any sort of rare action figures or anything that Zespi has just kind of come across within the 5-6 years that I've been going there. More so. So yeah, it's just cool. I mean, it's got the lighting, you've got the wall of pinball machines, and because it goes all the way to the little arch door where there's even more pinball machines, it looks like it just goes all the way to the back, which it does. And it's just lights, sound, a nice, cool environment, proper kind of dive bar Chicago energy. And I kind of knew right then and there, just like, oh, this is it. This is really, really cool. I'm glad I live by here. I'm glad I found this.
That's actually really funny that you mentioned that because the first time I went to Logan was like 2018, and obviously the last time was last year, in May. And you're right, like it hasn't really changed very much. It just kind of looks the same, and but yet it doesn't look stale. Like it doesn't feel stale, even though,
Oh
like you
no.
were saying, that they all have this. Yeah, you're right. It seems exactly how I always remembered it. And yeah, it always gives me like a in the most endearing way possible. Like it feels like you're in a dungeon with arcades.
Pretty much. I mean, it's a if you want to describe Logan Arcade as any venue, it's a pinball dungeon.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because that's the one thing I also want to reiterate is that while yes, we are hosting Third Strike and it is the living, breathing, beating heart of our Third Strike scene and our ST scene and a couple of our other old man fighting game
Mhm.
scenes. It's not the only thing. I mean, it's the go-to pinball place
Yes.
in North America,
Right.
period.
Yeah.
It is one of the go-to places for Killer Queen in the United States, in the lower 48, in Alaska and Hawaii. Everybody from around the world who wants to play Killer Queen. I mean, that's one of the original Killer Queen machines that we got at Logan Arcade as well. And on top of that, also now we're developing a DDR scene. Fresh for this new year, they actually got a brand new, spanking new DDR machine that now shares our corner, and now a bunch of people are now starting to come in and get regular rotations in, and play DDR.
Yeah.
So now it is a member of several families, and we're thankful that our community is a huge part of that family.
Yeah. So you said it took you a while to start kind of talking to people. So how did that how did that start? Like,
Well, really, it came across just kind of asking for general advice,
uh
because now once I actually got to the point where I was playing regularly and I was starting to talk to people more and more, I just wanted to say, oh, what can I do to improve this? What can I do to improve that? And I think one of the first people that I really started talking to was Dirtmaster, because I mean, anybody who knows Adam, I mean, shout outs to Adam. He's been one of the cores of the Third Strike scene for God knows how long.
Jazzy season 1 finalist.
Season
He
one
he won
finalist.
the auto qualifier at Michigan Masters. Shout outs
I
to
remember that.
Michigan Masters. That was a great
I'm about to
event.
say, you want to know what's funny? I'm glad I actually got this right by my feet. I was using this to play Street Fighter 6 earlier,
Oh
but he actually
yes.
won that
On that
using
stick.
my
Yeah,
stick.
yeah, your Kill Bill
So he
stick.
won that on this,
Yeah.
yeah. Which now this is my at-home stick, so that way I
Uh,
don't have to get pulled aside every time I go through TSA because of the brass knuckles handle. So
we're gonna have to talk off stream, make sure that that ends up in the Jazzy Hall of Fame.
oh man, as long as I still get rights to use it.
So yeah, so Dirt Master was the one who like you started talking to, and so yeah, it was just like asking him for advice.
Yeah, and I was surprised because he knew so much about the game just in general. I mean, he's been playing it since launch. He's been playing it forever. He used to be a second impact player, so he knows pretty much every single character inside now. You can play roster just like a couple of our other top players. I mean, everything that I asked, he had an answer for, and that was just so great to have, right out the gate.
Yeah,
Especially when I switched over to Makoto, and he was somebody who knew how to play the character very competently and give me a lot of pointers starting out that definitely stuck through me up to today. And it's always nice that even now, I mean, there's some stuff that I never see happen that he kind of just knows inherently that he still kind of imparts onto me. So
hmm
yeah, it's a teacher student relationship that is still kind of ongoing in some ways. Although there are some times where I do kind of do something that's a little bit off the wall that I have labbed that he gets a little tripped up by before. So there are some occasions where, the student does become the master, but most of the time it is vice versa.
well, I mean that's he has the word in the name,
Yeah.
so yeah.
You can't get nothing by him, man. He is
Yeah,
Dirt Master for a reason.
Whenever I think of Dirt Master, you sometimes you have those matches in Third Strike where it's you know third round, just one touch from either character will do it, and you're just playing that game of chess, trying to see how you can land that last hit that'll win you the game, and like real talk, like the player that I enjoy like that situation the most, playing that in that situation is Dirt Master.
Yeah.
Like, because he is so creative. He has this like creativity about him that I think is pretty distinctive for the older players from like my generation. And like whenever I think of Dirt Master, I think like in the scramble, like it's no one is as good as Dirt Master in the scramble, and it's like really fun to play him in those situations. So yeah.
Yeah.
But so you start talking to Dirt Master, then I guess you get to know all of the other players in the scene. The reason I was asking this question because it's like you were saying, you were kind of like you grew up, you're much younger. You grew up in this console area, really, and so I just assumed that when you first went to Logan, a lot of the players were players that were probably leftovers from the arcade scene, and so I was just curious as to how that interaction went in because like you're coming from like you don't really know that scene, you don't really know that community at all, and you're sort of entering this new space, and yeah, it's
Yep.
really interesting to hear your experience.
I mean, I've only heard stories, and I
Yeah.
continue to hear stories. I mean, from what I've been told, the really really old school name drop is Nickel City Arcade,
Huh.
which I still think somehow is still there, but obviously nobody regularly like goes there anymore. But the ones that I mainly get a lot of stories from are the people that kind of were in that crowd, and of course a bunch of the people that were around during those like really early, like we're talking about very first iteration of Frosty days. So Arshad, Miguel, um, part two, he was around for that in some capacity, I think. And Brian, he's Bathtub Leviathan. You may know him by shout outs to him. He's been around forever. And he was my hardware sensei, where anytime that I had a question about streaming or hardware or anything like that, because that's the stressful thing about tournament organizing when it comes to these older games and you're running on this hardware that is over 30 years old at this point now, is okay, well, I can't just like pull out the user manual, or I can't just like Google something that's wrong with this board or anything like that. I have to like have inherent knowledge if a problem is wrong, if there's a problem that I don't know how to fix. And thankfully, Brian is that dude when it comes, like, he's so intuitive and so knowledgeable about not just CPS3, but CPS2. Obviously, he's an ST guy, and just knows the hardware inside and, well, mostly inside and out, but enough to definitely be a huge help at literally any event that we have run. So,
Yeah.
most of the old school stories from that arcade era, I definitely heard from him and a couple of other SD players.
Yeah, I was just really curious about that. It's cool to hear your experience of kind of entering that space and not having any kind of real experience with the FGC, the old school FGC, like they call it. Let's talk more about the Chicago scene in general. We're gonna have the auto qualifier at Logan Arcade on April 20th, and if it's half as hype as the last one, I would be happy because the last one was so hype. It was
The last one was
so
good.
exciting. It was electric. That's the word I was trying to find after the event, like to describe just that atmosphere in there, especially during top eight. It just felt electric. And
I mean,
yeah.
I try to be as humble as I possibly can. That's just kind of my personality. I don't get opportunities to toot my own horn that often, but toot toot, because our scene has stepped up in recent years to be a genuinely fantastic scene, not just in terms of personality, but in terms of talent.
Yeah.
Like I'm just gonna say it straight up. Other scenes, y'all better be fucking ready whenever Chicago rolls through,
Uh-oh.
because
Uh-oh.
we got hitters. Like
Uh-oh.
I'm going to just flat out say it.
It only
We
took
we
5
have.
episodes.
I, I feel comfortable by saying that because it's a genuine fact that we have
Yeah.
developed such a great scene that has talent in pretty much every single spectrum. Obviously, some of the odds-on favorite to make deep Frosty's runs are Big Red. He was a Jazzy Circuit final. I think he was a finalist last season. Correct
Mhm.
me if I'm wrong on that.
Mhm.
Part two, his brother Silent Impact. We have Nipperman being really on the rise now. He's had a renaissance switching over to Chun-Li. He's now one of our best. I mean, as you can imagine, already really good third strike player makes the switch over to Chun, and that makes their stock, skyrocket. Patty got bands. Shout outs to Patty. He used to be the learning Yun player in our rotation, and he always got beaten up so bad in our rotations. And now he has evolved into legitimately one of our best players and is just super scary because he's got the execution of a very scary young player where if you just make one mistake, all of a sudden you're getting hit with Daipon loops and all of a sudden you're just eating all this damage and he's getting engaged regularly and he's just doing all this pressure. It's just like, what the fuck am I getting hit by? Like, all of a sudden you were leading and then next you're in the blender. So it's like,
Yeah.
and that was over the course of just a year and a half to 2 years of play. Like, same thing happened with me. I used to be just kind of a Makoto that was very aggressive, very much run my head into the brick wall several times, and I would sure win sometimes here and there, but I would lose more than I'd win. And now I'm at a point where I feel like I can beat everybody, but at the same time, anybody can beat me.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that level of talent all throughout our scene, and other scenes do have that. Other scenes, SoCal has that, Texas has that. Um, some the Seattle guys have that. New York has that. Uh, Nebraska, Kansas, they have that in a couple of pockets, and now Chicago has that consistently as well, and which is really really good to see.
Yeah. That whole Midwest area, Indiana too. Got to show love to Indy.
Oh, the Denji boys!
The
I love the
Jazzy
Denji
boys.
boys.
Yeah.
Man, they are all really great. Like, I'm so glad that we are now having consistent Midwest talent and rivalry kind of throughout the scenes, and everybody is just feeding off of that and getting better because that's ultimately what you really want to see with a scene. Because before it was like Chicago was king of the Midwest for a while, and then the Denji boys got really good out of nowhere. Not out of nowhere. They worked really hard because they saw how good we were, and they just wanted to match that energy,
Yeah.
and they just came out the gate swinging. Now it's pretty much every single Indiana Chicago match at either Frosty or Combo Breaker. I'm now kind of sitting on the edge of my seat and just like, oh man, they're gonna come at us at a million miles an hour. We gotta be ready for it.
I have to bust out my globe or my map. But how far is Nebraska from like Chicago and Indy? It's still right away, right?
It is a ways.
Yeah.
So Eat and Company don't make it out to stuff super often. A lot of people always think that it's closer than they think, but you
Yeah.
got to remember, there's Iowa is in the way. There's some corn and shit between us and Nebraska.
Okay.
But yeah, anytime that Eat and Cameron come out too, they're also super heavy hitters that manage to keep us on our toes. I mean, anytime that lacrosse shows up, they've been getting pretty good. Minnesota, I mean, my brother from another mother, Big Bad Wolf, my travel partner. I mean, I was roommating with him for pretty much every single major that we went to from Evo to CEO for 2018. And yeah, he's another one that has just constantly been getting better and better every single time I play against him. So
Yeah.
it's just the Midwest has become this amalgamation of really cool, really talented, really awesome third strike scenes.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and talk more about the Chicago Handshake series. So let's start with the name. Like, what's up with the name?
All right, so I can explain the name.
Okay.
So the Chicago Handshake is a tried and true tradition in the area that Logan Arcade sits in. There used to be this bar right across the way on Fullerton Avenue. If you're going towards the freeway, across the street is this bar called Quenchers, and they were the ones that started this combo of a can of old style beer and a shot of Malort, and they called it the Chicago Handshake because anybody who comes through Chicago, this is how you shake hands with them. This is the drink combo
Ah.
that you
Mhm.
offer as a welcome to Chicago sort of thing.
And you mentioned
Um,
Brian earlier, Bafta Leviathan. That's what he did. He took me to a bar and he bought me a can of Old Style and a shot of Malort, and he said this is just what we do or something like that. But
yep, that is your
yeah.
initiation. That is our way of
Uh,
saying welcome to Chicago.
it was like in
Uh,
midday too. It's like I know it felt like I don't know exactly what time it was, but it was like 2 p.m. or something like something early in the afternoon like that. And then we just go into this bar and no one's in there. Like maybe like a couple employees, but almost no one's in there. And I was like, wow, okay.
that's usually how the story of the Chicago Handshake goes.
It's like an empty
So
bar and just yeah.
yep, just this neighborhood bar, and all of a sudden you got a shot of Malort and a can of Old Style. Quenchers was the one that started it. Unfortunately, they closed in 2019. They shut their doors, and at that point, a lot of bars around the entire city picked up on the Chicago Handshake,
Mhm.
mainly because Malort was also gaining popularity too. But the baton of the home of the Chicago Handshake was kind of spiritually passed over to Logan Arcade, because we were ones that also did the Chicago Handshake as well, because we were right across the street from the originators of it. And then once they closed down, that kind of, fell back onto us, and we just kind of keep that spirit alive. So, uh, going into this next season, I kind of wanted, we already resurrected the old No Drinks on the Astro City tournament that we did as our first tournament series ever at Logan Arcade. And I'm glad that, it went over so well. But for this one, I kind of wanted to get a lot more eyes on it. And I just felt like a name change was kind of appropriate. And so, just to kind of reflect the symbiotic relationship between us, the bar, the community, and everything, I just like, well, Chicago Handshake. And thus the name was born. And if anything, I was also like kind of thinking ideas to myself. It's like, okay, I can keep track of who does well locally, and the winner, whoever wins locally, gets a handle of Malort and a case of Old Style. as like
That
the
should be
here.
who's ever at the bottom of the rankings gets the Malort. I don't know if this is something that the winner wants.
I about to
Speaking
say
from
that
personal
it becomes a
experience, I've
race to
had
the bottom. Then
I've had Malort. Yeah, right, I've had Malort. So I was like, wow.
I
The
about to
winner,
say,
the
for
people
those
at the
of you.
top of the rankings should be able to decide who has to drink the shot of Malort.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, like,
Yeah.
for those of you that are coming into Frosty next week, look me in the eyes right now. Don't let people peer pressure you into drinking Malort,
Yes,
okay?
do
If
not.
you want to drink it on your own volition, you can do that. Don't let anybody peer pressure you,
Don't drink it.
okay?
Don't drink it. Don't drink it. No, no, no. Yes. People in the chat saying, what are they saying? They're saying Malort tastes like Windex.
I
Okay,
mean,
number
they're
one,
not
Brett.
wrong.
Shout out to Psycho Rarity. Number one, Brett. I hope you haven't actually tasted Windex to know what Windex tastes like. But for some reason, that comparison sounds apt. For some reason, I don't know.
I would say I may have accidentally drank a Windex when I was like 4 or something, but
Yeah, yeah. Malort is pretty gross. Yeah. And so yeah, and then we talked a little bit about Frosty, which is coming up. And so you've been to Frosty again multiple times. Kept talking about how cold it is all the time at Frosty. But let's talk about this year. 150 players in the Third Strike tournament. Obviously, a MSF event. Uh, a lot of the Chicago notables are going to be there, and so talk me up. Well, before that, you know, talk me up about like Frosty, and who do you think are your favorites going into that event? Because not just the Chicago players, but there are a lot of notable out of towners coming in too. So yeah, what are your thoughts on Frosty?
well, I mean, every single year it's always a huge third strike tournament, especially for the past 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
And every single year it just ends up being just an absolute slobber knocker by the end of it. I mean, I remember the year that I almost made top 8. I remember it was like I had to scramble really hard in order to get there, and literally every single match that I was playing, I was just like, I am at my ropes end with all this stuff, and then the grand finals between Lance and Al, where it really was Texas versus Texas, but spiritually it was Texas versus Chicago. Um, but that was a wild finale. Last year obviously was really, really great for us because it was an all Chicago top four. We hope to repeat that this year. But again, we've got all the big names rolling through. I mean, I've actually got to get my cheat sheet up here to see who exactly.
You have some insider information,
Well, I
Joe,
mean,
to who may be
hey,
attending Frosty.
it's a benefit of knowing the mics where I can actually like see stuff a little. Which, by the way, shout outs to both of the mics,
Yeah.
Greek Fighter and Elvin Shadow, for always putting on such a fantastic, fantastic event. It's always nice to see, who's coming through.
Damn, Joe outing his sources here.
Oh man.
So who are you speculating to appear at Frosty
Well, obviously
next weekend?
all of our Chicago talent is going to be rolling through. Obviously, some of the names I mentioned there: Nipperman, Yogurt Brain, TBD. He's former Denji boy, I think now living in St. Louis for college. Now he's a Makoto player who very, very quickly tuned me up after I tuned him up at Frosty. um, we got, Bathtub's going to be in the bracket. Big Red, he's all ready to go for this weekend, or next weekend, I should say. Let's see. Endgamer 3K, that's another one that is from Iowa area. Cookie's going to be rolling through. I have not seen Cookie in a very, very long time. I think not since CEO last year. It'll be good to see Cookie in bracket again. Rescue Ryan, another Denji boy, coming out from Indiana to play.
So who would be your top three, like right now? Just based on all the knowledge you have of who might be showing up at Frosty. Who do you think's your top three at Frosty?
My top three at Frosty's. I think if you had to twist my arm and force me, I think it would be Yuki versus Big Red in grand finals.
Okay.
And I think that Big Red will probably have to play either Yogurt Brain or Nipperman in order, and it'll be definitely be Big Red coming in from losers. I feel like Yuki's got a very good. I think he's got a very good chance of making grands from winner's side. I can definitely see Big Red in top three. I can see Nipperman, Yogurt Brain, and you know what? Depending on how he plays, maybe even Patty in top three.
Uh-huh.
But that right there, I think that's a pretty good guess as to who, at least from my gut and just kind of seeing who else is on the list. Just I feel like that's a good prediction pick.
Yeah.
From my end.
Yeah, big fan of Big Red too. Big Red Ken. And so let's talk a little bit about the Jazzy Auto Qualifier coming up in April on the 20th. And so we talked a little bit about just kind of our experience at the Auto Qualifier last year. By the way, taking it was Versaga coming from out of town, quote unquote enemy territory, with all of the crowd cheering on, rightfully so for your Chicago natives, and then for Versaga to be able to win that tournament. But I think a lot of the players really showed how much work they've been putting into the game during that tournament. A lot of the Chicago players that you just mentioned were in the top 8. They played really well. A lot of out of towners were there, and so like, what are you thinking about? When you're thinking about this auto qualifier coming up, it's a month earlier. It won't be the last one. It'll be in April. Pretty close to Evo Japan. And so, kind of what are your thoughts going into this year's auto qualifier?
My thoughts are I'm really glad that it's hosted on 420 of all dates, so that way, in a weed legal state, that is going to be just a fantastic time for us.
Is that and Malore? Oh no.
Yeah. But yeah, no, as you mentioned, the energy last year, I mean, we really brought it. I mean, Versaga definitely did come into enemy territory, and honestly, in my heart of hearts, I knew he was going to be the odds-on favorite to win the auto qualifier, but it definitely does. It filled me with a good sense of pride knowing that we had to make him work pretty hard to get that last spot on the auto qualifier.
Mhm,
And again, just a testament as to how hard we work. Because I mean, it literally, no exaggeration, is just any given Friday, you go to Logan Arcade, and you have Big Red, you have Part Two, you have Tough Gnarl, you have pretty much everybody that is regularly at our tournaments defending home turf and constantly, being the gatekeepers,
mhm,
being the ones with the keys that you have to go through in order to get into higher bracket.
mhm,
And which is why I say anybody who's even like in the Chicagoland area, if you can make it out to Logan every single Friday, you can learn the game of Third Strike. You will get better at it. Like, trust me. Like, and not only we don't just like play rotations against ourselves, we play so that we all get better. We all improve,
yeah,
even the ones that are brand new, fresh to the game. Because there's also like a couple of new players that we have entered in, and it's just started coming out every Friday, and already I'm starting to see them improve every single time I play them. So it's definitely going to be another really great, showcase of the Chicago scene come April. Really excited. Obviously, Logan Arcade is helping us out with a lot of stuff, and just a really gracious venue to work with, and just super excited to finally kind of have another opportunity to just give that venue the event that it deserves, because that was really the first goal of mine. What For the first one, I really just wanted to use that as an opportunity to give back to a venue that has given me so much personally. So, and now it's just another opportunity to do that. Only now we just got to do it bigger, better, and
mhm,
I guess with fireworks in the backward this time. I don't know. I really don't.
mhm.
I was like racking my brain on how do we really improve on last year, and I guess the easiest answer is just to do it again, except everything's bigger.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you talked a little bit more about Logan Arcade because yeah, you're right. They were super gracious. But what like and I don't know, maybe this seems like a small thing, but notice that they had put the stream on in all the TVs everywhere in the bar. And just a gesture like that shows that hey, whether like you said, whether it's pinball, Killer Queen, Street Fighter, Third Strike, it does really seem like a place where it's like, you're excited about this niche thing, come through and we'll help you out and try and get more people interested in your niche thing. And just for Logan to do something like that, yeah, it's like they're just a really cool venue. And I think, above all else, Logan Arcade helped create that electricity in the venue because of
Yeah.
just them being all in on the event. And it was just super cool, especially having like, guys like Nick from the staff help out and everything. It was just the energy was really great. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick is great, and he's also on board as a helper for every single one of our ranking events as well. I honestly, out of all the people, and from all the Logan staff, from the barbacks to the bartenders to Zespi the owner and Melissa the general manager, all of them are just do such a great job, and of course all the techs that work at Logan. Oh my god, I I owe them an infinite debt of gratitude, and basically to pay their bar tabs from here to the rest of time for the amount of times that they have had to pull some of our monthlies out of the fire. So because like they are absolute angels. They are just so great. They all know what they are doing. They're all very good at their jobs, and they're all super accommodating. in ways that I can't even begin to describe. So like they are really the true superheroes of not just this ranking event, but the auto qualifier and really any event that we decide to host at Logan.
I lied. I think I could think of at least one thing that could make the next auto qualifier better. Tamales.
Ah, well, I mean, stick around long enough, my man Claudio's gonna roll through.
No, I think that would make the auto qualifier better.
Oh man, yeah, no. Shout out to Claudio, man. The OG tamale guy. That honestly, that's the true experience. Not a shot of Malort, not a can of old style. Is you hang around enough until you hear a small Venezuelan man shouting about tamales, and then he just pops them down. It's like, all right, you want chicken, pork, or cheese? And then you get a
Tamales.
bag, and then you'll just be on
Yeah.
cloud nine the rest of the way.
It's just something about like I stopped drinking, but like I've had my share of tamales and beer, and there's just something about that combo that is just magical. So yeah, maybe tamales will show up at the finale. Who knows? So yeah, Joe, thanks for coming by. Now that we've talked a little bit about the Chicago events, I wanted to talk a little bit about the first Jazzy Auto Qualifier of Season 5, going down this Saturday at Barcode in Garden Grove, California. It's going to be Jazzy Barcode, and the winner of this auto qualifier will be flown out to the Jazzy finale, which will take place again at Akihabara Arcade in Denver, Colorado, June 21st to 23rd. And so the attendee list for that Start GG page is public. And so we can definitely try and maybe speculate on who might end up in top 8 for that event. It's also going to be a ranking event. So even if you don't win, you still get points if you play. And I had the great privilege of running and the Jazzy Barcode last year and being there, and just wanted to take this opportunity to shout out Rich, the owner, longtime member of the FGC, who runs Barcode. And yeah, I hear Fly Zone Hugo is winning it. Shout outs to FM Juan. Also scheduled to appear at Jazzy Barcode. And so yeah, like it's so interesting to think about like last season, because like the vibe at Barcode was different from the vibe from the Logan auto qualifier, but like they were both really sick, in their own way. And it really kind of, is really kind of a testament to the venues and how they're able to kind of create this experience. And like Barcode is really cool because if you're like a 90s or if you're like an 80s or 90s kid, then you're basically kind of going back in time when you walk into a place like Barcode. They have this like really interesting art installation on the wall where Rich put up actual VHS tapes on the wall,
That's
old
cool.
VHS tapes. Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm about to say that that's the one cool thing about Jazzy Circuit is it allows every single scene all across, like all across all of North America, really, to shine in their own unique ways. And it's got me to the point where I'm like, if I don't really do content full time anymore, but if I did, I definitely would be like planning a series where I would visit and just like play in every single like big scene. Like you go to Barcode,
Yeah.
you go to Don's Arcade up further in north in California. You go to New York, obviously Brooklyn Games. Down in North Carolina, Lost Ark, and now they got Abari down, I think, in Charlotte or area around there. And just all across this country, you can find scenes like that just have their own unique flair to it, and it's really cool to actually like see that as we get into these ranking events.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's one of my favorite things about Jazzy when like you said, I get to like, it's almost like I get to like visit virtually all of these different arcades and venues, and it really is cool. And so, if you're in the area and you want to compete in Third Strike, or if you want to come through, I think we're going to be closing player registration, I think tonight. And so if you want to actually be in the bracket, be sure to sign up by the end of today, and then we're going to open it up for spectators, basically as many as we can fit, that we're, capacity. And so, yeah, shout outs to Rich and Barcode and the whole crew over there. Looking forward to seeing a good mix of like new and old Southern California Third Strike players. This is the scene that I came up in, and so I recognized almost all of the names, and I really wish I could be there this year, but I've it's good to know that Tom Arlaev is gonna hold it down for Jazzy Barcode, and let's see if let's see who takes it. Really interested to see how it shakes out. But like just looking at the list, uh, first player you got to mention is probably Amir. That's
Yeah,
probably
Amir's
the
heavy
heads on
hitter.
favorite. You
Yeah.
know,
I mean, I got Makoto bias, so Tom,
rooting for
please.
Tom. Got you. Yeah.
About
Yeah.
like I mean, shout outs to Tom, man. I mean, that's the one that was one of the Makotos that I watched like pretty frequently to kind of learn on my stuff when I was learning.
Mhm.
And uh I mean that dude, he just plays Makoto on a level of understanding that I can only wish to attain. Like
I mean, just wait another 10 years or something.
I about to say I have not buffed all of the wrinkles out of my brain yet. I need to like really get in there and get like all the remaining like stubborn bits out.
Yeah.
I'd say
Um.
Tom's already got it like smooth as glass down there.
So here's the Start GG page for the Jazzy Barcode event. Again, I think player registration will be closing by the end of tonight. And so be sure to, if you want to be on the bracket, be sure to sign up. Start.gg/Jazzy Barcode. We already have 53 players signed up, 64 player or 64 attendee cap, and the event fee is going to be $40, and that includes 4 food and drink tickets. And so we have a link to the menu. I had some of the food at Barcode last year. It was really great. And so, yeah, come through, have some food, play some Third Strike, and it all goes down this Saturday, January 20th at Barcode. Start.gg/Jazzy Barcode. All right, Joe, that's all the time we have for tonight. But I just wanted to thank you for coming on and telling everyone more about the Third Strike scene out in Chicago. Stay warm as possible. I know it's
I
been
mean,
pretty cold last few days over there.
I
I mean,
mean,
it's cold
I've lived
here, but
here.
it's not like Midwest cold, So
I mean, I've lived here all my life, and the cold has not gotten me yet. So I'll just keep on keeping on. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
thank you for having me on. Thank you for allowing me to talk about all of the scene that I love so much. These guys are my second family. These guys mean a lot to me, and I really appreciate the opportunity to give them the platform to do the best that they can. So I guess if I have anything in closing, come to Logan Arcade, come hang out with us, come join us. My name is Forsey Joe, and always remember to take care of yourself, and I will definitely see you at the next one. So thank you, Mutant, for having me on, and thank you all at home